Hello, and welcome to another second grade episode of Math Matters. My name is Mrs. Cook, and today we will begin our study on repeating patterns. Let's dive into our learning today by doing a which one doesn't belong routine together. Maybe you've done this before in your classroom. You will see 4 pictures, and it will be your job to think about which picture doesn't belong. There are no rules here. You just need to be able to justify or explain your thinking. And there are many different answers or reasons for each picture. Are you ready? Here are the pictures. I will pause and give you time to think. I bet you came up with some really good ideas about which picture doesn't belong and why. Let's share a few and you can compare your ideas, which may be the same or different, and that's okay. Let's start at the top left. Maybe you thought this first picture didn't belong because of the red ladybugs. Maybe you looked at the bottom left and noticed it was the only one with 6 bugs. Or you noticed that it had 1 bug down, then 1 bug up. Maybe you looked at the picture on the bottom right, and it didn't belong because it's the only one with green caterpillars. Or it's the only one with black spiders. And it's the only one with bugs without wings. Finally, this picture on the top right might not belong because it's the only one with a butterfly. Or maybe you noticed that each of the other pictures seem to have a pattern of bugs shown. But in this one at the top right, the bugs appear to be random or have no pattern at all. Thank you for joining me in our sense-making routine for today called Which One Does Not Belong? You did a great job justifying your thinking as you shared which picture didn't belong. You might have noticed a few patterns in that activity, and that's going to be our focus for today as we learn how to identify, describe, and extend repeating patterns. As you follow along today, think about how you're able to identify a repeating pattern, describe the core of a repeating pattern, and extend a repeating pattern. We will have an opportunity for you to reflect on your learning at the end of the lesson. Also, as you are working today, you will have an opportunity to practice your portrait of a graduate skills. You already showed that you are a creative and critical thinker by looking at those bug pictures in new and different ways. You'll have more chances to practice that today, so keep it up. Also, you will work hard to be goal-directed and resilient as you follow along with the lesson today. It can be easy to get distracted when you're at home, but I know you'll try your best to stay on task. For today's lesson, you will find it helpful to have some paper and something to write with nearby. We'll give you a moment to go gather your materials before we get started. Let's get started by taking a look at this picture. What do you notice? Did you notice there are 4 black circles and 3 pink squares? Maybe you noticed they seem to be organized in a certain way. First the circle, then square, circle, square, circle, square, circle. We call this a repeating pattern. A pattern is a unit of objects that repeat over and over again. Notice that the circle and square repeat over and over. The core is the unit or set of objects that repeat. In this pattern, the circle and square repeat, so we would name this the core. By identifying the pattern and the core, or the part that repeats, we can predict what will come next in the pattern. Can you use what we know about the core of this pattern to help you identify what comes next? Did you predict the next shape would be a square? If we know the core is circle, square, circle, square, circle, square, repeats, and then the pattern continues with a circle, then you're right. The next shape would be a square. Let's practice. What do you notice about this pattern? Maybe you noticed the colors purple and orange, or that there are girls and boys. Take a moment and describe the core, or the part that repeats in this pattern. You are right. The core of this pattern is girl, girl, boy. If this pattern repeats, what can you predict will come next at the end? Did you say girl? Let's check. Girl, girl, boy, then girl, girl. You were right. A girl would come next if we extend this pattern. Here's another repeating pattern. You'll notice part of our pattern is missing. To help us find the missing shape, take a moment to look and see if you can identify the core, or the part that repeats. Were you able to describe the core of this repeating pattern? The core, or the part that repeats, is triangle, circle. If this pattern continues, what would be the missing shape? You've got it. A triangle would be the missing shape. You can practice finding patterns while you're at home today. See how many patterns you can find. When you find a pattern, take a picture or write it down. Share it with somebody in your home and tell them what you know about finding the core of a pattern or the part that repeats. Here are some examples of patterns I found in my home. Can you help me find the core? You are right. The core is the first 3 socks. They repeat. How about this pattern? What is the core? The core is the first 2 cups. Blue, gray repeats. Here is another pattern. Can you find the core? The core is spoon, spoon, fork. Great job! I can't wait to see what patterns you find at your home. Happy hunting! In today's episode of Math Matters, we learned that a pattern is a unit of objects that repeat over and over. And the part of a pattern that repeats is called the core. We use this to help us extend a pattern when we wanted to know what would come next. How did you do today working towards our learning goal? Reflect on your progress by giving a thumbs up if you feel like you've got it, a thumb in the middle if you're still practicing, or a thumb down if you need help from a teacher or someone at home. Mathematicians are goal-directed and creative thinkers. Take a moment to reflect on yourself as a mathematician today. Were you able to persevere and stick to the learning goals for today as we worked on patterns? Were you creative and able to think about finding solutions in a new or different way? What might you work on for tomorrow? Thank you for joining me for today's second grade episode of Math Matters. I'm Mrs. Cook and hope you'll tune in for more math fun tomorrow.